Hi, welcome. I'm Fazia Costi, and today we are speaking with Angilie Kapoor. Angilie is a very fascinating individual. She is a highly acclaimed leader with over 20 years of experience in healthcare. She's dedicated to helping managers unlock their potential and become impactful leaders. Through her extensive background in management and leadership, she offers invaluable knowledge and insights gained from her own journey. Angilie is the founder of Oversight Global, an organization dedicated to addressing the consciousness crisis in the world, one leader at a time. And I love that. Her mission is to educate and empower aspiring leaders, enabling them to make a significant impact on the world. So, welcome, Angilie. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Me as well.
So, before we get started on some questions about consciousness crisis, what I want to know is, who are you? What can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, of course, of course. So I'll just kind of give you a little bit of everything, but I actually was born in Germany because my parents were in the military. And so they were stationed in Germany. So I was actually born there. I spent my first few years of my life there. And then we moved around to different states in the US as they got transferred to different places. But I've kind of grown up all over the place. I mainly grew up in Austin, Texas, and then moved to Seattle, Washington as a teenager. And then I've spent most of my adult life there. But I got into the healthcare field because my mom is a nurse. So it was kind of like that natural following what
Sure.
my mom does. And so I got into the healthcare industry and I started as, I don't know if you know what a scrub tech is, but they're the people who hand the surgeons instruments in surgery. So I
Yes.
started in that position, but after doing that for a few years, I really wanted to talk to people while they were awake. I wanted to see people's faces and not be in a mask all the time, which is kind of ironic because now with COVID, that's been going on for a while. But I switched to the administrative side of healthcare, and I ended up working my way up from an entry level position to the management and leadership ranks. And it was there that I really found my passion for, really mentoring and coaching other people. And so, it wasn't long before I ended up pivoting and going in the direction of coaching. So I became a leadership coach, and I mainly work with people who are first time managers and who are struggling like I was, and who I saw many other managers struggle as well, and just help them navigate that journey and overcome some of the typical management and leadership struggles that they go through, so that they can, really embody their phenomenal leader that I believe that we all have inside of us, that we just need to connect with and have that, come out. And so that is what I do. And, I'm very passionate about, like you said, addressing the consciousness crisis in the world. I think that in a lot of ways, we become disconnected from our true selves and who we truly are. And that has ramifications in all areas of life. So that is just a quick tidbit about who I am.
Well, I think you've had a very interesting career. Tell us a little bit about what is a consciousness crisis. I mean, let's define that before we move forward and talk about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So I really found this during my years in the field, being a manager and becoming a leader, and working with my staff members, is that, there's a very big lack of self-awareness and being conscious of, you're not only yourself, but the things that happen around you. And I dubbed that the consciousness crisis because, it, daily I would have staff members come to me, talking to me about some problems that they were having, and I would try and help them navigate through those problems. But a lot of them would get stuck in this box of, I'm my identity is my job title. And so it was really, I found it very difficult for me to kind of help people realize that they're more than just their job title that they've kind of boxed themselves into. They have a life outside of work. They have, passions and desires other than career focused ones. And so that's what I kind of mean is about consciousness crisis, is that there's just this lack of people just have this lack of self-awareness and consciousness about what else is out there in the world that they're really meant for, meant to enjoy. And it's not just them being here just to work a 9 to 5 and help somebody else achieve their dream. They have dreams too that they want to achieve. They just haven't created that self-awareness and that consciousness to actually really figure out what that is.
Actually live their life deliberately for themselves.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Being intentional.
Yeah. That's a very interesting thing. I have to say, I interview a lot of people, and I've never heard that perspective before. So that is a very interesting perspective. How has the consciousness crisis affected the way leaders lead in various sectors around the world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big on, because I am a leadership coach and because I've seen it from different perspectives, being in the seat of a leader and a manager, and then watching other leaders and managers kind of do their thing as well, is, I think we see the ramifications of leaders kind of lacking that self-awareness and that consciousness in various ways in our world today, with companies not running smoothly, toxic work environments, even up to government. We see things happening with our governments to where there's not a strong leadership there. But without a leader having that consciousness, again, I call it, when I talk to my clients, I talk about being inwardly focused versus outwardly focused. So if you don't have that self-awareness and that consciousness, you're very inwardly focused and really focusing on what's happening to you and what things you want to achieve. Whereas, if you're a leader of a group or in the workplace or an institution or a company, you want to be more outwardly focused because you are working for others. You are helping to serve your team members and your community and a greater population, and it's not just about you anymore. And that's actually why the transition, I find the transition for people going into their first management positions is so hard, because before they were a sole contributor, they were just worried about doing their job and performing well in their function. But when they transition into a management position, it's a whole different perspective and approach. It's so much more wider, it's a bigger picture, and there's more people involved. And so, when somebody is lacking that kind of perspective, approach, and understanding, and they are in a position of authority, that's why they struggle so much. And that's why, there's a lot of opportunity missed in creating efficiency and effectiveness, and also growing the people that you're responsible for, and realizing that you actually have a pretty big responsibility, especially in the workplace. If you don't create and maintain a healthy work environment, that affects the people that are on your team and their personal lives and their health, and things like that. So those are just some of the consequences of somebody, a leader and a manager, just not having that consciousness.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference between a manager and a leader. Would you agree?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think we used to call a manager because they managed us and they were micromanaging sometimes.
exactly.
A leader helps you grow. A leader helps you see what your potential is.
Exactly, exactly. And actually speak about that a lot in my marketing and with
Yeah.
my the people that I work with, is that, your position doesn't make you a leader. You're put in this position of authority, but that doesn't automatically give you respect or influence. That's something that, you need to grow and develop. And, my tagline is I'm always saying, leadership is a journey, not a destination. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. In what ways can leaders develop self-awareness and self-knowledge to better serve their team?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy, but at the same time, it's difficult. It's really stopping,
The concept is easy, implementation is hard.
exactly, exactly. It's really the concept of becoming present and really starting to get to know yourself. When I was going through my own management and leadership journey and then working with some of my staff, I personally discovered that I really did not know who I was. I got into management in my 30s, and for 30 years I really didn't know who I was. I was really going through the motions and being conformed by expectations of other people. And I think for a majority of us, that's really what happens in our lives. But really just stopping and saying, okay, who am I at my core? What is it that I like to do? What are my desires? What are my core values? That was a huge thing for me, is when I really started to, turn inwardly and start figuring out who I was. I realized that I didn't even know what my core values were. That whenever anybody asked me, what are your values, I would, start rattling off my company's values, but that
Right.
wasn't who I was. Yeah. And so again, it's really simple, turning inward and really starting to get to know yourself. But at the same time, it's difficult because it's not something that we're used to doing. So yeah,
Right.
that's the first step in really somebody becoming more self-aware and conscious is, figuring out who they are and learning to like and love themselves.
How do you do that? Like, what are some of the things that you did on that journey, that self-discovery journey, that helped you better understand who you were so that you could become that manager that you wanted to be or that leader that you wanted to be?
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot of quiet time of self-reflection and asking myself, some tough questions and journaling. Now, I have to tell you, thought people who journaled, before I got into journaling, I thought I was like, really, what does that do? It's just kind of a waste of time, right? Why do they spend, a half hour every day just kind of you know, uh, just
Writing
writing
things down.
in this book. Yeah. But oh my gosh, when I started journaling and practicing that on a regular daily basis, it is incredible. I don't think we realize just how much our brain is working and how much emotions that we really don't understand is happening until you kind of allow yourself to take this blank piece of paper and just dump everything that you're thinking and feeling onto it. I mean, it's so eye-opening, but at the same time, it's very therapeutic and, figuring out some things that you might regret or some emotions that you're holding in that you need to release and things like that. But that is, basically what I did is I got a journal and I really put on my calendar and I really was intentional about if I had a conversation with somebody or if a situation happened and I needed to figure out if I handled it the right way, I would stop and write in my journal, okay, this is what happened. This is what I did. Do I feel like I did a good job? How would I would have liked to have handled it? And things like that. Or, if I got stressed or got into some kind of a negative emotion, I would start writing down, okay, why is this happening? How do I want to feel instead of feeling this way? How can I get to that feeling? So for me, it was a lot of journaling and being intentional about really looking at my behaviors and my feelings and my patterns and my habits, and really looking at them and saying, are these good habits? Are they
Right.
negative, positive? Are they serving me? Is this part of who I want to be? Obviously it's part of who I am, but is this part of who I actually want to be. So for me, journaling was really the first step, and a huge, huge step in getting to know who I am. And I still journal today, and that's been years. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very valuable tool.
hmm
I think it really helps sort out your own emotions, and it's kind of like a quiet therapist that doesn't say anything to you.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's very therapeutic, and yeah, so easy. But at the same time, seems so simple. But it's actually so much bigger than that.
Absolutely. What is the significance of core values in leadership, and how can they be effectively instilled?
Yes. So yeah, I touched on this a little bit, talking about, becoming more self-aware. But again, when I was going through my self-discovery journey, I realized that I did not know what my core values were. And working with others, I find that it's the same for them. That, they think their core values are something that was instilled in them by somebody else, or they rattle off their company's core values or somebody else's core values. But when kind of really ask yourself, or if somebody really asks you, what are your core values? A lot of us don't know that. And
So
so
what
I
are your
really
core
encourage,
values? Let's talk about your core
yeah.
values.
So
I
my
think, and the
core,
reason why I ask you that is because I think you're right. People don't really know what to say. So
mhm,
maybe this will inspire everyone else who's listening to think about what their core values are and maybe come up with their own.
exactly. So yeah, my core values are, I'm really about being authentic and being my true self. And I really strive to treat people the way that I want to be treated. And I also, strive to impact people in positive ways, to always kind of leave things and people better than how I found them. And then, serving my purpose. I believe in God, and I believe that, He put me here for a reason. And so serving that purpose and always striving to reach my fullest potential. So those are my core values. I should say right now, because I've also discovered, going through my own self-awareness and self-discovery journey, that your core values will change. And that is not a bad thing. So, because sometimes I have people go, you know, I figured out my core values from 2 years ago, but they're not my core values anymore. Is there something wrong with that? No, no, not at all. You're growing and changing every day. And so your core values will grow with you and will change with you. So I think that's important to note for people as well, is that,
Yeah.
it's not something that stays the same for years and years. And because you grow and change, they will grow and change.
And I think they should grow and change because as
Mhm.
we evolve, we become a better version of ourselves. So why shouldn't our core
Exactly.
values? At least
Exactly.
I hope we become a better version of ourselves. I mean, sometimes it doesn't happen for certain people, but just because you
Right.
take a step back doesn't mean you can't go forward again. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
what are some of the long-term consequences of apathy towards understanding our true selves and our core values?
Well, I think we're starting to see that now. There's a lot of what I call groupthink, where people have these thoughts and opinions because they're somebody else's.
Yeah, they're not even
Again,
sure that it's their opinion. They defend it almost viciously because
yes.
it's not really theirs.
Exactly. And I think that viciousness comes because, they're being confronted with, is this really what you're thinking and feeling? And they're like, no, it's not. But they get upset because they don't really know what they're feeling and thinking.
It's
So that's where that
confusing.
vicious, exactly. That's where that viciousness comes from. And,
Yeah.
I experienced that early on in my management career as a first time manager. Because I lacked that self awareness and that consciousness. If somebody would ask me for my opinion, or the biggest one was, why did I make the decision that I made? And I would again get really upset about it because again, I didn't know, I wasn't comfortable or confident in the decision that I made, and having people question me because I was not functioning from a place of knowing who I was and why I made that decision. But yeah, I mean, I think again, we're kind of seeing that is that people don't really know what they're really thinking or feeling. They're following other people, following influencers. Another reason why I really stress that, if you're an influencer or somebody who has a following where you are influencing what they're thinking
Right.
or feeling, that's a huge responsibility that you need to take seriously. But yeah, again, I think we're seeing it every day, and it's kind of getting worse every day. That people just, they're not realizing or exploring who they truly are, and
Right.
what they're truly meant for, what their path is. They're following somebody else's path. And to me, again, a consciousness crisis and a whole bunch of lost people just kind of walking around the world, um, kind of in robot and programming mode, rather than being intentional and really knowing what they're here for and living their own lives versus following somebody else.
Yeah, I think there's just so much information out there, and there's so much conflicting information out there
Yes,
that I
yes,
think people just are overwhelmed and they don't know which direction to go. So they pick something and they stick with it. And it may
right,
not be the right thing, but they're going to defend
exactly,
it. And that's what makes it hard. Um,
exactly.
what are some common characteristics of effective leaders who are self aware and prioritize community values?
Yeah, I mean, it's those qualities, are definitely ones that we want to look for in people that we follow or who we listen to. But it really goes back to somebody who really is authentic and isn't afraid to be transparent and vulnerable. Because if they are comfortable and confident in who they are, they're not going to be afraid to share that and let people see that. Also, somebody who isn't really working from their own agenda, but knows that they serve others and is really conscious and intentional about doing what's best for the people that they're serving, and not working towards their own goals and desires, but knowing what is expected of them, what their responsibilities are. And to me, somebody who is a great leader is somebody who creates other leaders, not followers, but leaders. Because to me, I call it the sacred leader mission. And it's, understanding that as a leader, you're responsible and you actually are meant to go out there and create other leaders. And when I say leaders, I'm not just talking about a leader in the workplace. I'm talking about being a leader of your own life.
Right.
Because that's something, again, with the whole managers and leaders becoming self-aware and conscious, is that I found that I needed to learn who I was in order to be the best leader to myself. And when I was able to do that, that's when I was able to be an effective and good leader to others. So it starts with you, and then it expands to you being able to do that to others. So that's why, for
Hmm.
me, a good leader is somebody who first has that self-awareness, and again knows their core values, knows what they want people to say about them, and how they want people to see them as a role model and an example. And then on top of that, be building, creating more leaders. So helping
Yeah.
people to be leaders of themselves, and again, get away from this group thinking and blindly following people and not living your life. That's not what you're here for.
No, I love it. I love the idea of you have to be a leader in your own life, and you can't lead others unless you are able to lead in your own life.
Exactly.
So it makes a lot of sense. How can leaders navigate the tension between advancing their own agendas and empowering others to lead?
Mm, yeah, I think it definitely goes back to knowing your core values and,
Yeah, I think everything goes back.
exemplifying. Exactly. It really
Yeah.
all comes back to you. It
Yeah,
really does.
I think knowing who you are and knowing that you are leading and you're living your life really well, I think that's kind of the core, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
So maybe I'm a good student. Maybe I learned something today.
You do, you learn really quickly.
Thank you. All right, now I'll let you finish.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying that, it all goes back to knowing yourself and what your core values are and what who you are, what your identity is. And because again, when you do that, it becomes less about you and it becomes more a bit it's bigger. You realize that it's bigger than you. And then that's when, you really start serving the people that you are meant to serve, include, your family, your spouse, your children, your community, your team at work. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely love that concept. I love how it just kind of grows. And when you have multiple people that are leading and growing together, I think you kind of bring each other up as opposed to
Exactly.
pulling each other down, which is a
Exactly.
fantastic concept.
Mhm. Mhm.
What are the benefits of cultivating a sense of purpose and meaning and what are the benefits of cultivating a sense of purpose and meaning in leadership?
Yeah, again,
I'm sure there's
I touched
many.
I
Yeah.
know. I've touched on it a little bit about, knowing your purpose and really striving to achieve that and striving to achieve your fullest potential. But when it comes to leading and managing and being able to do that, I know that, I mean, being a manager and a leader, especially in the workplace, is hard. And that goes for also being a leader in your life. It's not always easy to be a leader in your own life. But when you feel like it's purposeful and it's fulfilling, it becomes easier, especially when you encounter challenges and obstacles. When you have the proper mindset and you kind of know what your purpose is and what it is that you were trying to achieve, it's easier for you to get back on that horse instead of kind of wallowing in negativity and, I call it the woe is me moments. you know, I mean, we're all going to have them. That's a question that I get actually pretty frequently is, when you reach a certain level of being a leader, do you still have challenges? Well, yeah, you do. It's just you have learned to manage those challenges and overcome them a lot easier than before when you didn't know the different tools and resources that you needed to do that. You were it was easier for you to give up, or it was easier for you to place blame somewhere else, or it was easier for you to kind of get depressed and wallow in negativity. But when you have the proper mindset and the tools and resources that you need, you bounce back from those stuff so much easier. But yeah, you're gonna continue to get challenges in your life. It never stops. The difference is you just handle them better.
What are some of the challenges that leaders face that are maybe more challenging at the beginning of your leadership career versus at the end?
Yeah, so I talk to a lot of first-time leaders about the transition from being an employee to becoming a manager and being in a position of authority. And I always tell them that nobody tells them this, so I'm going to tell you when that happens, this Pandora's box of all these fears and anxieties and limiting beliefs just kind of pops open. And again, it's because it's no longer just about you. It's about this team of other people. And so, you start to fear conflict. You start to fear failure. You start to fear things like loss of control. Your imposter syndrome kicks in. Your inner critic starts going wild. And
Almost
I
like being a
really found
parent.
exactly again, not just you anymore. You're now serving a little human. But yeah, I mean, I really found that because of the internal conflicts that first time leaders start to deal with, they also have external conflicts. And I always kind of backtrack and help them to realize that the external challenges that they're having are because they're having these internal challenges. So your internal challenges are actually the root cause of your external. So say, an external challenge is being able to delegate tasks. Well, you're having issues with that because your internal challenge of having a fear of loss of control, or not yet having trust in other people doing as good a job as you, that's where that's coming from. So if you fix the internal stuff, the external stuff will be a lot easier to handle. So yeah, that's definitely what I found from my own experience and working with others, is that the internal challenges that suddenly, get popped open, this box gets popped open, is really the hardest, the toughest things to overcome, because first of all, they don't recognize that it's internal. They think it's all external. But if you, again, go within, start to figure out who you are and what's happening with you, that stuff, as soon as you figure that out and you start to work on overcoming those internal challenges, those external challenges pretty much, start to go away.
Can you give us a few examples of times when you've had a specific challenge and how you handled that challenge as a manager?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I know one of the biggest challenges for me, and I think it's with every first time leader, is number one, the overwhelm. Is that there is so much responsibility on your plate that you have no idea where you're supposed to focus, how you're supposed to work on something for a good amount of time before you have to switch and work on something else. And that overwhelm is due to kind of this lack of clarity in regards to, what their role is, what's expected of them, what goals they're really being expected to achieve. So I always mentor and coach first time managers, is one of the first things you need to do is gain that clarity and start to figure out, what you need to accomplish and where your strengths and weaknesses are, so that you can start to focus your energy in proper areas. So, one of them, again, is overwhelm. The second thing for me was managing different personalities. I got my first management position 6 months shy of my graduating with my 4-year degree in healthcare administration, healthcare management. And I even went to school. I spent time in classrooms and did role playing. But when I got into my first position, I still was so ill prepared for the different
Real life
personalities
is
that
different,
people.
isn't it?
Exactly. I even went back to my teacher at the time, who was my mentor, and I even said, you guys need to throw in a bunch of psychology classes into your program because this just isn't working. But yeah, I mean, people are complicated,
Yes.
and one of the things that I had to learn going through my experience was that leadership is hugely about the human experience.
Yes.
It's not, as a manager, you are organizing and planning and strategizing how to run your department correctly. But when you're leading, you're dealing with people, and it's about the human experience. And again, I found I really struggled because, I started reading all these books about different personalities and trying to memorize them and trying to put people in these different personality categories so I could figure out how to best connect with them and manage them effectively. But when I really started to learn about my own personality and learn about myself, that's really what I had the breakthrough of. It was easier for me to figure out what was going on with other people if I knew what was going on with myself first. So again, really goes back to you once again.
Yeah. Wow. What role does education play in promoting self-awareness and value-based leadership? Now, this is kind of a big topic because education has changed a lot over the last few
Yes.
years. So, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are a lot of topics and subjects that are lacking in our, educational system. In my opinion, I really feel like if in school we are taught about, things that we're going to run into in our adult lives, like, finances, for example, or when it comes to, being self-aware and conscious, is subjects like mindset, self-care. If we are made aware of, just these two topics, just two, I mean, how much different would our lives be instead of kind of stumbling on it and figuring out in our adulthood, and really I feel like wasting so many, promising potential years of what we would have been able to achieve if we had just known about the power of our minds and the importance of prioritizing ourselves in order to serve others.
No, I agree with you. I think there's a lot that we should learn when we're still in high school.
Mhm.
Some of us figure things out and some of us don't.
Exactly.
And that's the sad part, is some people just can't figure it out and they flounder.
Right.
And it's really, really sad and really hard to watch.
Mhm.
Whereas they could have just as easily taken a class on meditation or time
Right.
management or organization, or whatever it is. But there's a whole series, in my opinion, of classes that should be taught in school that are
Yes.
more about like just managing your life and developing who you are. And
Mhm.
I'm not discounting the history class or the math
Right,
class. I'm
right.
not
Yeah, those are
discounting
important.
anything. You need those.
Yeah.
To,
Yeah.
but to be a fully rounded human being, you also need to know a few things about how to make yourself the best version of yourself.
Right, right. And I know I don't want to get controversial or anything, but it that really feeds into like mental health and the mental
Oh,
health
yeah.
crisis that we're having. If the education system would include, like you're saying, things about getting to know ourselves and the concept of emotional intelligence, learning how to manage your emotions and recognizing emotions and how to manage them in others. I mean, that would be huge. And with mindset, the experts say that your mindset is actually developed by the time you're 7 years old. It starts to develop from birth, from your different experiences and circumstances and the different observations in your environment. And by the time you're 7 years old, your mindset is solidified. And so, that carries you forward into, an adolescence, being a teenager and being an adult. And if your mindset, wasn't developed in a good way, you don't have a good mindset, well, your adulthood is being affected, and what you're able to do and how you contribute, and again,
Right.
how intentional you are with living your life.
No, I do believe that we can change, and I do think that there's that potential for that mindset to change, but
Yes,
it has to be conscious and it has to take effort.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
wouldn't it be easier if we just taught this in kindergarten?
Yeah, yeah. If we started out that way and instead of having to backtrack over decades.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be
Yeah.
easier? I just, which brings me to my next question. So like, knowing what you know now, knowing the
Mhm.
things that you know today about yourself, about your career, about your life, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, my 20-year-old self. I mean, I remember my 20-year-old self after I graduated from high school. I was so lost. I was. I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for because I didn't know, what I wanted to do career-wise, where I wanted to live. I mean, I don't know if it was just me. I'm sure there were other people out there who
Oh no,
experienced
lots of
that, but
people. Yeah,
yeah,
you
I was so lost.
it's a
And
big club.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, I switched majors in college like 3 times because again, I just didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do with my life. So the advice that I would give to my 20-year-old self would be, again, get to know who Angelie is. Get to know who I am, what thought patterns I have, what habits I have, what behaviors I have when I'm feeling, um, and really what do I want, and figure out my core values. What do I want to do in my life? What do I want to accomplish in my life? and that's everything, like, personal and professional. Do I want to get married? Do I want to, be a mom? Things like that. So yeah, to me, it all boils down to, again, that self-awareness, knowing who you are, getting to like who you are and learning to love who you are just the way that you are. So yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's been absolutely a pleasure having you on today and having you share such wonderful information with our listeners. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Yes. So I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And all of my handles are at Oversight Global. So OVERSIGHT Global, GLOBAL. Also, my website is www.oversightglobal.com.
And we will put all that information up on our YouTube channel when we put your information up there, and also on the information for the podcast. It'll be in there as well, next underneath your
Sounds great.
bio. So
Sounds great.
yeah, so if you're looking to get a hold of Angilie, you can definitely do that. If you're looking to get in touch with me, you can go to my website, executivefunctioncoachaz.com or 54mediagroup.com. You can check out our new magazine issues every month on the 10th. And you can go to 54mediagroup.com and subscribe to the magazine. And if you subscribe to the magazine, the link for the podcast will be in there as well. Or you can go to our YouTube channel and any of our social media, and all of that is also on the link. So we want to thank you for listening. Without you, this would not be possible. And Angilie, I want to thank you for coming on the show today as well.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.